promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Banjul and 7 p.m. in Lagos. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Muslims worldwide mark Eid al-Fitr today after a month-long fast and prayer.
Happy Qur'an to all Muslim and non-Muslim. We wish everybody the best in life.
My family usually travel every Salah, but this year we may not be able to travel due to increase in fuel and transport fares.
World Bank commits $150 million to strengthen Senegal's healthcare system. Burkina Faso regulates religious practices with a new bill.
The draft law reaffirms freedom of worship while at the same time sanctioning hate speech, offensive remarks and derogatory statements directed at another religion.
And UN Rights Office raises concerns over dissolution of 40 political parties in Guinea. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
On the news, this is a More Edit.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Muslims around the world, including West Africa, observe the 2026 Ramadan fast in a context characterized by surging food prices and essential commodities, as well as concerns around peace and security. The former is the case for several Muslim families in the Gambia who are celebrating the end of the holy month under growing financial pressure, while traders in major markets lament poor sales due to rising prices. Customers are cutting back or abandoning purchases altogether. This economic predicament has by no small measure impacted the mood and atmosphere around this year's celebration of Eid al-Fitr, popularly referred to as Korite in the Gambia. WDL sang the Ahmed in Banjul some reactions of people who, despite the hardship, are looking at the brighter side of life.
Across major markets in the Gambia, traders report slower sales as customers scale back spending due to high prices of essential commodities. Some shoppers say they are being forced to abandon purchases altogether. Alaji Suebu Sane, a young man in his 20s, say the market has taken a heavy toll, calling on the government to intervene as prices continue to rise.
The government should do something because everything is costly. Even to buy a shirt or trouser, it's costly.
Economists warn that the situation reflects broader economic pressures facing households, including rising inflation. Lamin Diba is an economist.
A general rise in the cost or prices of goods and services, one of the main reasons the Gambia has been experiencing inflation is that we do not produce. We depend on outside countries to survive.
Despite the surge in prices, Korite remains one of the most important religious celebrations in the Gambia, marked by prayers, charity, and family gatherings. Here are reactions from citizens as they celebrate the festival.
Happy Qur'an to all Muslim and non-Muslim. We wish everybody the best in life, and we wish the country peace and stability and prosperity and unity.
It is special, but in this year it will be more special since I'm going to celebrate it with my grandmom and my uncles also in Birkama, which I never did before.
However, rising prices have forced many families to scale back their celebrations, highlighting growing economic pressures on households. Even as the festival continues, the gap between tradition and affordability underscores the challenges facing ordinary Gambians. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Beyond the Gambia, Nigeria's harsh economic conditions are affecting everyone, including Muslims, marking the end of the 30-day Ramadan fast. With the rising cost of food, clothing and transportation, many Nigerians from the south to the north are tightening their budgets, focusing on essential needs while putting aside non-essential spending. Our Abuja correspondent, Yechino Sasejo, takes us to the markets and into the homes of families navigating celebrations in challenging times.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
The end of Ramadan is here, and across Nigeria, Muslim faithful are marking Eid al-Fitr. But this year, the celebrations are unfolding against the backdrop of rising prices from bustling markets in Lagos to the ancient city of Kano. Families are adjusting, holding on to tradition even as prices go up. For Bilkis Abdurrahman in Lagos, shopping for Eid this year came with a reality check.
This year, rice is around 53,000 naira. 5-liter groundnut oil for 16,500 naira. So last year, chicken was around 20,000 naira. But this year, I'm seeing 30,000 naira.
And she is not alone. In Kano, Rukaya Ibrahim is navigating the same reality.
Brocade we're able to buy is an average one ranging 40,000. We are able to get 3 shoes and then other accessories.
There's also the question of movement, of reconnecting with loved ones. For Hawa Majida, that tradition has taken a hit.
My family usually travel every Salah, but this year we may not be able to travel due to increase in fuel, and transport fare also increases. We went to the market, but Kaskia, all I can say is we just managed to buy what we could afford.
Still, even in the face of these challenges, the essence of Eid remains deeply rooted in faith, generosity, and community. Faisal Kazim reflects on this balance.
To buy things for people, particularly people in our compound, mandatory zakat. Alhamdulillah, I think I can afford all those things.
As families across Nigeria mark Eid al-Fitr, their stories tell a familiar tale of resilience, adaptation, and unwavering faith. The prices may have changed, plans may have shifted, but the spirit of Eid remains. For the ADR, Yechenus Hasitu reporting.
In Ghana, the National Chief Imam Sheikh Dr. Osman Nuhu Sharubutu has congratulated Muslims on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr 2026 while calling for deeper reflection, discipline and unity across societies. In a message issued on March 19, the revered Islamic leader urged Muslims to ensure that celebrations remain within the bounds of decency, modesty and the law, stressing that Eid should go beyond festivity to reflect the spiritual lessons of Ramadan. He noted that the essence of fasting is to attain piety, which must be evident in daily conduct and in behavior that aligns with societal norms and national laws. He further called on citizens across regions to, regardless of faith, to uphold values of patriotism, humanitarianism and collective responsibility, key pillars for strengthening social cohesion and peaceful coexistence in West Africa. The Chief Imam also offered prayers for justice globally, peace in the Middle East, stability across Africa, and continued prosperity for Ghana and the wider region.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Away from the Eid celebrations, but still staying on religion-related matters, in Burkina Faso, authorities are moving to regulate religious practices following the adoption of a draft bill on Thursday at the Council of Ministers meeting. Under the proposed law, the establishment of places of worship within public institutions will be prohibited except in specific cases. In addition, umbrella bodies of religious associations will be tasked with monitoring religious preaching. Authorities say the bill is aimed at preserving national unity. Here is the minister in charge of religious affairs, Emile Zebo, speaking at the government meeting.
Le projet de loi réaffirme la liberté de culte.
The draft law reaffirms freedom of worship while at the same time sanctioning hate speech, offensive remarks, and derogatory statements directed at another religion, religious movement, or their followers. It prohibits the construction of religious buildings on land designated for purposes other than worship. Existing or ongoing situations will be required to comply with this provision within a specified time frame. The bill also sets out the conditions under which religious freedoms may be exercised within public services. It bans the establishment of any form of religious structure in public institutions, with exceptions made for healthcare facilities, prisons, barracks, and military camps. In addition, it includes provisions to address disturbances associated with the practice of religion. The draft law further places responsibility on religious communities and their umbrella organizations, particularly through the establishment of oversight bodies to monitor religious preaching.
D'organes de contrôle des prédications.
Burkina Faso's minister in charge of religious affairs, Emile Zebo, speaking there. Elsewhere in Côte d'Ivoire, a major social milestone has been reached as lawmakers have adopted a bill establishing an annual bonus for Ivorian retirees. Under the new measure, every retiree, whether from the public or private sector, will now receive a significant annual bonus. The initiative by the Ivorian government is aimed at strengthening social protection for workers. Augustine Cooley reports.
The bill was presented to Parliament by the Minister of Employment and Social Protection and was adopted unanimously. Going forward, each retiree, regardless of sector, will receive an annual bonus on every 1st of September, equivalent to 2/3 of their monthly pension. According to the government, the measure serves as a mark of national recognition for retirees. Here is the Ivorian Minister of Employment and Social Protection, Adama Kamara.
These laws are intended to formalize the historic measure taken by the President of the Republic, namely to grant retirees in both the private and public sectors as bonus equivalent to 1/3 of their monthly pension, which has now been increased from 1/3 to 2/3. Owing to the strong financial health of our economy, he has directed the institutions managing public and private pension schemes to safely pay out this bonus. I am pleased to say that beyond 2050, this decision by President of the Republic to provide this special bonus to retirees in both the private and public sectors will remain sustainable and will face no constraints during that period.
It should be recalled that President Alassane Ouattara had announced during his address to the nation on August 6, 2025, plans to increase benefits for retirees. Authorities say the measure is intended to further strengthen the country's social protection system.
A report filed there by Augustine Coley. In Benin, military cooperation is being stepped up across West Africa in response to the growing terrorist threat. Top military officials from Benin, Côte d'Ivoire and France met at the Togmi military base in Abomey-Calavi on Thursday for high-level strategic talks focused on counter-terrorism. The meeting brought together the Chief of Staff of the Beninese Armed Forces, Froctor Gbagudi, alongside his counterpart, Lassina Doumbia and Fabien Mandon. Discussions centered around strengthening intelligence sharing, enhancing operational capacity, improving specialized training and tackling disinformation. France is expected to provide technical support and assist in training troops on the ground. Franklin Nosita, a Sahel analyst at the International Crisis Group, provides an analysis of the discussion.
From a certain point of view, it's perfectly normal. Benin and Côte d'Ivoire face similar threats, namely the expansion of jihadist groups from the Central Sahel, even though Côte d'Ivoire hasn't recorded any jihadist attacks since January 2022, I believe. And Benin continues to experience regular attacks. There is still a threat present at the border, and France is an important security partner, and both countries are at risk. From that perspective, it's perfectly normal.
What exactly will France bring to this collaboration between these two countries?
I think that remains to be seen. Perhaps it could help with coordination, so it could also be a meeting between friendly countries working on the same issues, even if they don't necessarily work together. We saw that, for example, even during the attempted coup in Benin in December 2025. It was Nigeria that came to the rescue, but also with the support of France.
Franklin Nosita, the Sahel analyst at the International Crisis Group. In Senegal, the World Bank is mobilizing $150 million to strengthen the healthcare system. The funding is primarily targeted at women, children, and the most vulnerable populations to improve access to healthcare and address inequalities in care delivery across the country. Sankule Janko reports.
This funding is part of Natanga 2030 program, also known as Prosperity 2030. In total, $150 million, equivalent to more than 85 billion CFA francs, has been secured to support the initiative. This includes a credit facility of 57 billion CFA francs from the International Development Association, alongside grants estimated at over 11 billion CFA francs from the Global Financing Facility. The remaining 8 billion CFA francs will be sourced from the Health Systems Transformation and Resilience Trust Fund. The program will, among other things, strengthen the management of obstetric and neonatal emergencies, while also expanding screening and patient monitoring services. Another key priority is to enable more Senegalese people, particularly the most vulnerable, to access health insurance coverage. It also aims to improve access to essential medicines and deploy more healthcare personnel to underserved areas. According to Jibrila Issa, Division Director for several West African countries, the program is expected to help build a stronger and more equitable healthcare system, better prepared to meet future challenges.
Sankle Janko filed that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Muslims worldwide mark Eid al-Fitr today after a month-long fast and prayer. World Bank commits $150 million to strengthen Senegal's healthcare system. Burkina Faso regulates religious practices with a new bill. Still ahead, UN Rights Office raises concerns over dissolution of 40 political parties in Guinea. We do have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget, we are streaming live on wadr.org and follow live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, has expressed concern following the Guinean government's decision to dissolve 40 political parties, including several major opposition groups. In a letter addressed on Thursday to Prime Minister Amadou Uriba, the UN body urged authorities to ensure respect for legal and democratic principles, particularly in the lead-up to upcoming elections. Chris Fatisha reports.
In an official correspondence dated Thursday, March 19, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights reacted to the dissolution of 40 political parties in Guinea. The measure, which authorities say is due to non-compliance with existing legal provisions, affects several parties considered representative of the opposition. The note, sent to Prime Minister Amadou Uriba, highlights the High Commission's concerns about the implications of this decision on the country's political landscape. The UN body also recalled that the affected political parties have a 6-month deadline to comply with administrative requirements set by the Ministry of Territorial Administration and Decentralization, a deadline that runs until the end of May. In this context, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, stressed the importance of respecting the principles of legal certainty, predictability of rules, and equal treatment of political actors. The organization also called on Guinean authorities to ensure an open and fair political environment, particularly ahead of the legislative and local elections scheduled for May 24. The High Commissioner also reminded that freedom of association and freedom of expression are fundamental rights enshrined in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, a treaty ratified by Guinea. Finally, the UN body indicated its readiness to support Guinean authorities in organizing inclusive elections that meet international standards on human and political participation.
Our Conakry correspondent, Channel 5 Ibrahim Abadi's report there and voiced by Christopher Atucho. Now in Liberia, drivers and motorcycle operators across the country are voicing strong discontent over the sharp increase in the prices of petroleum products. It took effect following an announcement by the Liberian government through the Liberia Petroleum Refining Company, LPRC. The Minister of Commerce and Industry, in collaboration with the LPRC, declared the new selling prices for gasoline PMS and fuel oil AGO on March 14, 2026, citing prevailing market conditions as a reason for the adjustment. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
Fuel prices in Liberia have gone up sharply, with gasoline and diesel both recording significant increases. Gasoline has risen by 85 US cents, bringing the wholesale price to $4.59 per gallon, while the retail pump price now stands at $4.87, equivalent to 910 Liberian dollars. fuel has also increased by 90 US cents. It is now selling at $5.50 per gallon wholesale with a retail price of $5.87 or 1,080 Liberian dollars. The government has attributed these increases to the ongoing global economic crisis. However, transport operators report significant strain as passengers resist paying higher fares, leading to tension within the sector.
Our passengers are not cooperating. Go to the passengers and you try to explain that to them, like, we need to make a little markup on the price. They will not want to agree to that. Some of them will even want to pass us. So because of that, we are losing passengers. You are here buying gas for safety. It is affecting us greatly.
Meanwhile, Liberia's Information Minister Jerry Kapia is warning importers and fuel distributors against unauthorized price hikes, halting compliance with the approved pricing structure.
Any importer who tries to create any semblance of artificial structure, their operational license will be revoked.
As Liberia grapples with these rising fuel costs, the government's response and the resilience of its transport sector will be crucial in mitigating the economic impact on everyday citizens. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Well, let's now bring you an analysis of Thursday's tripartite meeting in Cotonou, which brought together the Chief of Staff of the French, Benin and Ivorian Armed Forces. The discussion focused on joint initiatives to combat terrorism in the sub-region. Meeting at the Togbin Barracks in Abomey-Calavi, the high-ranking officers developed strategies for effective collaboration. Franklin Osita, a Sahel analyst at the International Crisis Group, provides an analysis of the discussion.
From a certain point of view, it's perfectly normal. Benin and Côte d'Ivoire face similar threats, namely the expansion of jihadist groups from the Central Sahel, even though Côte d'Ivoire hasn't recorded any jihadist attacks since January 2022, I believe. And Benin continues to experience regular attacks. There is still a threat present at the border, and France is an important security partner, and both countries are at risk. From that perspective, it's perfectly normal.
What exactly will France bring to this collaboration between these two countries?
I think that remains to be seen. Perhaps it could help with coordination. France is already, as I said, very involved in security cooperation in both countries. So it could also be a meeting between friendly countries working on the same issues, even if they don't necessarily work together. We saw that, for example, even though in the attempted coup in Benin in December 2025, it was Nigeria that came to the rescue, but also with the support of France.
And France could certainly help in the areas of intelligence and operational capacity building. How, in particular, could this help Benin to confront the terrorist threats in its northern region?
Absolutely. In fact, France has been doing this for several years now. They have training programs, provide equipment, and maintain a presence. But especially in Benin, where the armed forces still need more to face the threats, given that when the crisis began in the early 2020s, the Beninese army was perhaps under-equipped and lacked sufficient resources, both material and human, to confront the threats. Even though they have made progress since then, there is still work to be done.
Now, given that this collaboration does not include Sahel countries, can Benin manage these security challenges without the collaboration of its neighbors, Niger and Burkina Faso?
Yes, exactly. I think it's not insignificant that Benin is working with France and Côte d'Ivoire. I think any help in this crisis is welcome and desirable. But indeed, as you said, strategically, Côte d'Ivoire doesn't border Benin. The jihadist threat in Benin comes mainly from the two countries you mentioned, Burkina Faso to the north, given that relations between Benin and Niger on one side, and Burkina Faso and Côte d'Ivoire on the other, and then the two Sahelian countries and France, The former colonial power and former ally before the coups of the 2000s are not good at all. We can't imagine that this meeting would do much to improve cooperation between Benin and the Sahel countries.
In your opinion, what needs to be done to convince the Sahel countries to join this initiative, given that these countries constantly accuse Benin and Côte d'Ivoire of hosting terrorist bases?
I think it's quite complicated, given that Benin has already tried several times to reach out to the Sahel countries. Benin's authorities are well aware of the importance of improved security cooperation with the Sahel countries, but these countries haven't responded positively so far. I think that as long as France remains heavily involved in these matters, it will be quite difficult for Benin or any other country in the region to improve cooperation with the Sahel countries. Since there's a presidential election in Benin in April, there will certainly be a new administration. I think we can hope that this administration will be successful in building ties with the Sahel countries, even if, for the moment, optimism should remain rather cautious.
L'optimisme doit rester assez mitigé.
Franklin Nosita, Sahel analyst at the International Crisis Group. In sports, the Guinea Football Federation has urged the Confederation of African Football (CAF) to review the 1976 AFCON outcome, citing Morocco's walkout and a recent ruling against Senegal. The call follows CAF's decision to overturn the 2025 AFCON results as a sanction on Senegal for a walkout despite winning on the pitch. Guinea said similar disciplinary standards should apply to historical matches. The federation referenced the decisive 1976 clash between Morocco and Guinea, played on the 4-team round-robin format. Morocco needed a draw, while Guinea required a victory to win the title. Guinea led in the 33rd minute through Sharif Soleimani. Moroccan players briefly walked out in protest over a refereeing decision, but later returned to continue the match. Ahmed Makrou equalized in the 86th minute, ending the game 1-1. Morocco topped the group with 5 points to win the title, while Guinea finished second. Guinea argued the incident should be reassessed using principles applied in the 2025 rulings. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar. Many thanks for joining us, and a big thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudu Juf for the technical assistance. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WDR English. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, it's WDR's Opinion Poll Series. It's you speaking. I am Imo Edit. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.